Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's June 26th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And nice two-tiered channel down today. Um, you really needed to get, once again, to find these short-term trends and channels within the bigger picture here. Um, we didn't get a lot of play off the low side. We didn't get a whole lot of play off the high side. We really found some strong resistance right across this 29.30 and some strong support right down here around 29.26 or 25, 29.25, 75, 50 area right in there. And they weren't consistent areas of low. You can see they're kind of up and down. Same thing up here. It's kind of up and down. So they weren't consistent, so that makes it harder. But you can clearly see we're going back and forth above and below the EMA, and you can see how flat the EMA is. So we're really not trending from, say, 940 to when we broke lower here, 1230, almost 3 hours of just going sideways. So we did have a few entries in here, though, all the same. We'll talk about them, but there just weren't a lot of entries early on today when we actually had two clear measured moves down, and then we bounced. And you can see, I always do that. You can see if you measure this first leg, you pull it over, there's your second leg, and we basically got a perfect measured move there. So then it bounces. And that's why it probably bounces in there, because people are looking at that stuff. People that understand how price action works are looking for that, and they start buying in that area. And I don't believe in buying blind. I think you got to wait on the setup. And we really never get a good reversal type pattern here. You might could argue for this to be green right here, but I'd probably skip that. But we'll talk about it. But let me get that out of the way, and we'll back out and talk about the trades. But you can clearly see the two-tiered channel moving down. You can see that midline's been in play all day. But you really had to play the smaller trends within too. So especially this range here. That's where most of your trades came from today. But let me back out a little more where you can see it. We'll go through the trades and we'll wrap it up for the day. 7 o'clock came right in this area, right in here. This little bounce, this little correction. But notice you got a high. You've got a trend working up. You got a break, a couple of legs up, and then you run down. You make a first entry long. You push through the EMA. You pull back on a second entry. And so whenever it breaks, finally breaks lower here, that's when you would have you could consider that a failure. And so I looked at this as a failed second entry long. What you might do here, you probably want to wait till this bar completes. And when it does, you might let it break lower and drop your limit order back up here where it actually broke lower. Or as soon as it broke lower, you could have already had your sell stop there. I'd probably already have my sell stop there. But if you wanted, you could wait until this bar closed and see if it breaks below it. And if it does, go ahead and drop you a limit order back here where you would have had it to begin with. And it would have come back and filled you a couple of times before it heads lower. So that's probably how I would have tried my secondary way of entering that. But I probably would have just had a sell stop right below these two matching lows. So if it breaks lower, it's a failure. And we'll probably get at least a leg like this, and we may get a leg like this whole part. We actually got much more than that. So this turns out to be a pretty good move down. Wish we'd have had a good signal bar here, a little small one up here that broke higher or something. You might enter there too, right? Because that does confirm the trend line. But you really don't get a setup there. This is the only one you get early. And then we get another reversal right here. Notice how you're moving up. First entry, you're moving up. And as soon as it broke lower here, once it's broke lower and you get your second entry, as soon as it breaks above a bar after that, which is right above this bar, that's when it's considered a failure. So there's your reversal pattern. This one I almost made it green, simply because you've got a two-tiered channel here, and you don't really get a break and a new, or close outside and a new low, you just reverse here. But that, you'll see that a lot on range days. And so the fact that it's a reversal and it pushed through the EMA and all that, I tend to like that one. It looked like you were going to get a second entry short here, but notice how you got another inside bar. By that time you had 3 inside bars. Don't take that short, especially with that bigger bar with a little more bullish slant. So just too much sideways action there. You're better off to let it break lower and see if you get a reversal. And if you don't, see if you get a lower high. But it does take off here, comes back, and you get a higher low here, but this is really the lowest point, so that's your signal bar. This is just a little inside bar, skip that. It runs up, and you actually could draw your trend line off these first 2 bars and connect it with this one. So then you try to go higher once, twice. You really get a little double test of this level right here. That's a fairly bearish bar. It's not perfect. We did get a close and a new high. You really don't have this trend line confirmed at this point. You're just drawing it there. It looks correct, but you're just kind of taking a stab here. So that's a little bit aggressive. There are 2 legs up, but you may take that short. And then, of course, it turns down. It comes back, and it does confirm the trend line here. But it's a really bullish bar right into the EMA. You just can't go short there. And it's a shame because this thing really takes off, and that's a great move. And I just had that conversation with another trader about, being able to sit here and watch that without getting antsy and jumping in here. And what happens is a lot of people finally see a little correction and they jump in, or they jump in here and it stops them out, and they try it again. It stops them out again, and all of a sudden it takes off and goes right where they thought it did. So you just have to learn how to be patient and not get antsy. So you draw your trend line here, and you just kind of wait for prices to come back to it. And they finally do here, but you don't, again, and you get a second entry here. Notice that's a new low, first entry, second entry, but you don't get a very good signal bar. Then it pushes down. You get a little breakout pullback on a failed second entry long. That's where you want to enter. You are going short near the low, but you have that failure right there. It's a breakout pullback. You got a strong downtrend. Your measured move, it was way down here. I already took the arrow off, but it's right down here, exactly where we went to. We'd made an exact measure move. So there's a good chance we're going lower. Plus, your trend channel line is here, and then this is probably where the goal of the prices are, to fill this gap at a minimum. And so as hard as it was to get there today, that's what prices were attempting to do. And you can see we finally filled that gap late in the afternoon. We actually went a little bit further and then bounced. And look how we just bounced along that previous close when we finally closed a little lower. So you have to figure that's your target, is filling that gap. And so I like that trade. We end up bouncing early. And notice how we push right through the EMA, pull back, we push on up, pull back, and you get a failed second entry short right there. It looks a lot like that previous pattern up there. It looks a lot like this. It actually pushes through a little quicker and stronger right here. So what I would probably do, it's really not a failure till it breaks higher here. But it broke higher on this low, so you have to wait for the low of this bar to finish to know where your stop has to be. So I wouldn't just enter here and put my stop right under under that bar right there, because it might do just what it did here while still going higher. So you really almost need to let this bar close. And if you did, then you got the next one was an inside bar. You could have even entered on the second entry above that one. But this was really where the failure occurred, when it went higher right here. And so I would probably try to figure out some way to get in on that bar and just wait and put my stop down here when this bar completed. And you can see it looked like it was going to try to push below it, but notice how it never could. And that's why we use those places for your stop, and that's why they have to go there, because it's a protection level. If prices go lower there, then we're probably not done to the downside yet. But it runs up, and of quick easy scalp. You would think we're headed to here, and it looks like we probably are on the second leg, but we still don't get there. But you did have this resistance right across here, and we pushed through, and it looks like a failed um, it looks like a failed breakout right across there. Actually, I would have moved this down here by now. So you got a lot of resistance across there. And this looks like a failed breakout. And a little bit away from the EMA, and that's a big bearish bar with enough room. This one's close to being green because you really ought to wait on a lower high. But you never get a lower high here. You just about have to take that. But you could argue for that to be green. It's real close. Quick, easy trade, and it bounces again. So now you got to think, hey, maybe we're headed this high. But notice what happens. You make a new low, and you run up first entry, and then you get a second entry short. Right there, a little bit away from the EMA, basically made a double top. You're at least going to come back and probably test the breakout and even the EMA. And we could keep head lower again. But as long as you got enough room to get out, really, before you get back to that EMA, that would be my main criteria for that trade right there. And again, you may want to wait on a lower high, which doesn't come to here. And by the time you get it, you actually get a second entry short. Notice that low, first entry, second entry, and look how big and bearish that bar is. I like going short there. And you would think you'd get another quick leg down like this one, but you don't. You get a scalp out of it, but you don't get any more. And then we're just working sideways here. And then again, you get another two-legged move back up to test these highs. Bearish, big bearish bar. So a second entry short right there. Bounces again, comes back. You don't get a very good signal bar here. You get a lower high here with still enough room, but not a very good signal bar. You finally get a reversal here, and it did push a little lower in this last one, but it's still not lower than this. And so you're going short into that support right there. But a lot of times that's why you'll get these traps, is because they can't push it through. So they'll create that trap right there at the low to try to finally push it through. And that's what they did there. So you may, if you realize what's going on there and you want to be a little aggressive and hope you catch that move, you may try it. You may enter right there. Because generally when you get a bullish bar like that bouncing off proven support like this, it's going to at least go back to the EMA. And you're probably going to get a scalp out of it. And you notice it didn't happen here. That's obvious, pretty obvious when it turns down. If it breaks below that bar, it's probably a trap. And you can see that it takes on off. There's another swing here, not a very good entry. And then we bounce. That's the first break of this trend line. We did feel the gap. You get a second entry here, but very neutral bar, very bullish bar. Then you get a lower high here, again, a very bullish bar. So unfortunately, you just don't get a very good entry. And by the time you get a failed second entry long down here, you're bouncing off the low part of the trend channel line. And notice that you would have got a scalp out of that, but you can't risk it into that trend channel line. But that's what, a lot of times though, you get those traps like that, it'll give you enough momentum when everybody has to exit to push it on down to get an easy scalp. And in this case, it did that. It's tempting to enter here. You do have a break in a new low, and you're a good bit away from the EMA, but that's always just guessing, trying to pick bottoms. I'll mark it green. You're better off to wait on the higher low, which by the time you get it, you're already back to the midline, and you got this big bar, and it's right back into the midline. So you don't want to risk that. And then it looks like a failure, and then it looks like a second entry long, and you're just getting whipsawed there. This is after 2 o'clock anyway, but I still want to just talk about it. Sometimes you'll get a trade just into the 2 o'clock hour, but I don't see anything there that would interest me. You're just chopping sideways, and after the 2 o'clock hour, where you always could get whipsawed, get stuck in a trade. So not a lot of trades today, but most of them were fairly straightforward. Let me back out here. you can see it again there, your two-tiered channel working lower. And you can see prices clearly working that midline all the way down all day long. You just didn't get a whole lot off the trend, the actual trend line or the trend channel line. So, and the reason here though is just all this resistance. We just really went in a real flat, tight congestion range type area right there. And the only way to enter that is on failed breakouts or bars off the resistance area, reversals off the resistance, even if it's a breakout or not. They give you enough room to scalp out. And you could actually buy off this lows if you got a good setup, but there's not really a good setup here. So that was the best looking setup, and you can see you would have got burned if you weren't reading it right and didn't see that trend line working down through there. So not a bad trading day, not the greatest trading day either. I had this conversation with another trader today, but the real key is sometimes you just got to be patient. And that's where most traders trip up or fail. They can't be patient. Like this right here, it is really hard to watch that run down there and miss it, and then all of a sudden look like it's going lower again and jump in and get whipsawed. So you got to be able to watch that and then say, okay, I had to watch that entire big move. I didn't get a good chance to enter it. And now we're just going sideways, so there's not going to be any good moves out of this. So I just got to sit tight again. And then suddenly you get a little trade here that works. And then you get a bounce and you get a reversal, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of trades. But where most people get tripped up is they can't sit there patiently and watch this stuff. They miss this trade, they get antsy, and they say next correction or next second entry I'm entering, and then guess what? You get a second entry right here. And actually that one would have worked. The problem with this second entry here is that you don't get a very good signal bar, but even more importantly, you got all that support right there. And so you can't enter right into that. The way to enter is let it break through and come back and test it and maybe have a reversal or a second entry short or something like that. And then it takes on off. And we traded down into this, so you would figure if we're going to be successful trading out, we'll probably continue lower, especially since we're trying to fill a gap and the trend channel line is much lower as well. But notice we don't get there. You end up getting a failed breakout here, and it comes back. And it gets back. You can see it gets back inside that channel again, that little range, however you want to call that. And that's generally what you see happen. So anyway, pretty good trading day. Again, not a lot of trades, but there's more than enough here to get your 2 or 3 trades for the day. And, you know, it's fairly straightforward until you kind of got into this sideways action here. So, but that's just part of it. So you got to learn to be patient, and most of all, you got to know how to trade it. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.